Welcome to HCICollector version 0.7 getting started walkthrough. So how do we get started? Well, we go to GitHub, find the repo, and in Releases tab, get the archive file or get it from the branch by cloning the entire repo. Once you unzip the archive file in the directory, you will find a bunch of files. Some of them are just README files, but then the main one is really the install_collector.sh, which is install wizard, and then under SFCollector directory there is a Python script that gathers SolidFire stats and feeds them to Graphite. You can also see that some files or rather containers are already pre-created and don't have to be modified, but then some configuration needs to be created for our environment and is specific to our environment. So we can start the script and hit Control-C to see what those requirements are. So we saw we need the vCenter IP, SolidFire management virtual IP, and the IP of the virtual machine which will run HCICollector. So in VCP I found the SolidFire virtual IP. I don't really need any other information, but I'm showing this to demonstrate that in version 12 we can use a dedicated read reporting or reporting only cluster role with the monitor account. And then finally I get the IP for this virtual machine. I have multiple IPs here, which is recommended. You should really expose Grafana only on one of the IPs and use SSH and other things on the other IP. So I can restart the install script, provide the SolidFire virtual IP that we got seconds ago, provide the account that we want to use, which is monitor, vCenter IP, administrator account. We should use another one. I did not create it. And then questions, do I have DNS? I do not have, so it's a local domain and no ESXi hostname resolution. And then finally the IP of the Docker virtual machine. So with this I could still create some firewall rules. I'll recommend to open only port 80 because we are running Grafana on port 80. If you provide security SSL certificates, you can change the config and allow 443. Then with that, Docker Compose has been created. Now I can start either with app or do build first to make sure it builds according to what I expect. And then I can start it in console with output to console to see that all containers are starting, plugins are being installed, everything is working fine. Now, 30 seconds later, the Grafana UI should be accessible. It asks me to set a new password. I can skip this. If you don't want to set any password, you could do that as well. I mean, if you have HTTP, you should probably not use passwords because they're transmitted over unencrypted connections. So here you can see that the main data source here that we created is Graphite, and it's exposed over the same IP addresses as Grafana, so you should definitely not allow access to port 8080 or you should change configuration. And then finally we get to dashboards which use that Graphite source. You can see here the first one, which is basically unchanged from before, is SolidFire multi-cluster view. I have only one cluster called prod, so I don't see really anything here. Even the metrics, the reason I don't see those is sometimes it takes a couple of minutes to see anything that's been gathered, maybe 5 to 10, so I need to wait a little bit. Now I can also shrink the horizon of statistics displayed here and then set the refresh to automatic to see these metrics coming in. So this is working fine. At the very bottom I have drive status, so I can see, for example, I have one block and one volume and 3 block drives, which is what is expected in a SolidFire demo VM. The next is SolidFire cluster. This dashboard has undergone more changes. So you can see there's a clock panel now. There's a lot of panels which have either links or descriptions, which is useful. Efficiency factor now does not account for theme provisioning, which was kind of confusing to many people anyway. So it's only the dedupe and compression. You can easily change anything that you see in the in the UI. So for example, if I were to change this gauge to stat and save, some of these panels are not don't have any data yet. So if I shrink to smaller time period, I can see that some of the stats are being gathered. That's fine. Here you can see this is a new panel. You can see HCICollector connections. So if you were to run Kubernetes, for example, and have hundreds of connections, you'd want to keep an eye on this. And then I mentioned that in addition to description, I also have links in some cases to current alerts, in some cases to history, depending on the panel, which altogether I think helps users get productive more quickly with this environment. I can save my dashboards. I mentioned before that was not possible, so you had to kind of redo the same things over and over again, or save, export, and then import, and lose them again next time restart. The node dashboard is the same, just maybe a little bit better. I removed decimal point on all of these indicators that had it, so I don't get to see like 5.7 IOPS in these anymore. So account IDs, you can see, I can see them by name and number. This is how it was done before, by name, which was incorrect. So now I also save account IDs here, which adds to confusion, but it's a good, I think, the right direction how to save data. And then there's also the top end volumes. So how many you want to show, it's up to you. I moved the legend below graphs, so if you have a lot of volumes that you're showing, you can open a panel in full screen and see all of them rather than scroll. The good thing is they're all aligned now. The next one is histograms. This is a new one, so all the panels here are new. You can select particular volume by ID, so these are stored only under ID. If you click on the link, it takes you to the right volume. Maybe you don't know what volume ID is, so it's HCI bench. You can see here. So that helps people get used to the new metric space, and then if you watch these graphs or visual representations of histograms in use, you can see, maybe some volumes could benefit from different QoS. So you can see what is the prevalent IO request size for workloads. Again, as you pick different volumes, and if you need to look up their name, you can click on the link, which will take you to the right place in the SolidFire web user interface. Another new dashboard is storage optimization. In this dashboard, there are three sections: cluster, volume, and account information. So here I couldn't really avoid making this more complicated because it was done incorrectly before. So account, which they are not. And then I had to add account IDs, but they were already taken. So I have kind of mix up all this together in the same UI. So on the right, the new panels are trends. So for the selected period, I can see, for example, here I'm using 2%, which is the smaller figure in the trend. But then as I change the length or time period, I can get the change in data or metadata space utilization for this period. So I can see them both in the same place. So you can change this, to different number of decimals or whatever if you like. But I think it helps people see what is going on with their cluster in real time and also over a period of time. Now here, these are kind of simple dashboards you can use to optimize your storage. I filter out volumes with compression and do below 2x. So again, you kind of can't really map what is 1, 2, 3, and 8, but you can go to volume management to see what they are. So this helps you find candidates for improvements, or maybe check with a VM owner. I dumped a bunch of OVA and ISO files on this volume. That's why it has volume efficiency 1x. So it kind of helps you optimize capacity. Now there's another sample panel which helps you optimize IOPS. So for example, here I would be able to find volumes with burst credit over 600K, so over provision burst for particular volumes. I have none in this example. And then finally, for accounts, I have account efficiency, so you can kind of find which accounts are least efficient, and then maybe talk to these owners. Especially if you have multiple Kubernetes cluster. And this, on the right hand side, I really have to kind of, it's messy, so I can't really keep the two in sync. Account IDs are actually names, and then volume IDs are account IDs are numeric. So kind of I sync them manually if I know what they are, But in any case, I can see what volumes a particular account has. Maybe theme provisioning is kind of like taking away from the usefulness of this pie chart, but at least it helps me kind of narrow down accounts that could benefit from some additional attention in order to simplify or to enhance storage efficiency. And then finally here too, in VMware, with additional stats from volumes and data stores, VMware provides those in the UUID format. There's no way around it. I mean, you have to create your own aliases or find a way to map those, which is left as an exercise to the user. At least if you have, you can monitor them here. It saves you some time to find which volumes are more busy than others. And then finally, another existing or old dashboard with different virtual machine stats from memory, CPU, down to IOPS. Easy VMs in filter, focus on top 5 or top 10, and then examine their resource utilization. So you can see here at the very bottom, I have SolidFire 12, I have Cleondrus, a couple of other things running in my lab. So normally you wouldn't really need to focus at all, but if you want to find some outliers, you would look at top 3 or 5 or whatever. Again, it's possible to import dashboards that other people have created for this version. You can also export and share them with other people, maybe with your colleague. And then going back to this console, you can, now everything is working fine, you can hit Control-C to stop all the containers, and you can start them with -D to send them to background, and then you can log out of the shell. Again, you should really have SSH access and all the other access from another interface, and only leave port 80 or 443 for Grafana access. The volumes I maybe mentioned, Trident is now gone, so I'm using local volumes for Graphite. Grafana is a new volume which stores dashboards, so if you want to check how large those are and what's going on with them, you can use standard Docker commands. No need to have HCICollector interface or have a special account for HCICollector in your SolidFire environment. And then last but not least, containers. They are like they were before. There is one new container which is Grafana image renderer. It used to be done in Phantom.js, but Grafana deprecated it, and now there's a kind of dummy container that just uses browser to convert and create those images for export. So one thing that I mentioned before, as you click on these links, they take you to the right alert. So for example, severity warning, or you can also then easily find whether something has been resolved without navigating too much or knowing really